This month marks 20 years since the death of Princess Diana. National Geographic is marking the anniversary with a new book called Remembering Diana, A Life in Photographs. It has also produced a new documentary, Diana in Her Own Words. The movie features audio from secret interviews Diana recorded in 1991. We have a clip you will see first on CBS This Morning, where she discussed an early encounter with her future husband, Prince Charles.
I remember him coming to Althorpe to stay. He came with his Labrador. My sister was all over him like a bad rat. I thought, God, he must really hate that. And I kept out of the way. I remember being fat, podgy, non-makeup, unsmart lady, but I made a lot of noise and he liked that. And he just came up to me after dinner, we had a big dance, and he said, will you show me the gallery? For a 16-year-old, for someone like that to show any attention was just so sort of amazed. Why would anyone like him be interested in me?
Journalist, editor, and Diana biographer Tina Brown has written the foreword to Remembering Diana. She also wrote the book, The Diana Chronicles, and she joins us here. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's unbelievable to hear her voice after so many years. Everybody, I think, of a certain generation feels the same way about August 31, 1997, the way the previous generation felt about the assassination of President Kennedy. You knew her. What was she like?
Well, in person, she was so much more beautiful than in her photographs. That's really the stunning thing, because she had this really long, tall, imposing height, which you don't really get a feeling of in the pictures. Plus these enormous eyes, which were just big, limpid pools of feeling. And then this apricot skin that was the perfect English rose. So the combination of the dazzling eyes, the peach skin, you know, and the height, it was really very stunning.
Do you have any problems with the release of all these tapes?
Well, I think the Morton tapes that you hear on the National Geographic are absolutely fair to release, because after all, she wanted those published. You know, they did form the basis of the book that was then published by Andrew Morton, but was really Diana's own story that she gave him. The Peter Settlin tapes, which are her speech coach, which the other documentary has released, they were like therapy tapes that she was doing in private. I think those should have been released to her family. I think to simply put on air for anyone to hear her darkest, deepest, saddest moments, which were really told in confidence to her coach, and who was really her therapist as well. I think that's really very cruel to the family.
Why do you think they were released?
Well, for the reason that everything's released, which is for money.
It's that plain and simple. You don't think there's a public right to know when it comes to these kind of details?
I think it's still too raw for that to be seen. I would have preferred for them to wait another 10 years for that.
Except for her children and her philanthropic efforts, did she really know happiness?
I think it was very hard for Diana ever to be happy, because, you know, she came from such a wounded, broken family. You know, her mother left when she was 7. And what people also forget, her grandmother sided with her father against her mother in the divorce case. So this family was kind of riven with painful feuds. She was the sort of lonely child in the middle, while the other kids are off at school and little brother with her. So she was a terribly damaged girl. And I think that at the same time, you know, the whole world was in love with her. Everyone was in love with her, except her husband. And that was another blow to her.
Another sense of rejection.
Another sense of rejection. So here's this girl with the primal wound of her family, who then marries someone who she thinks is my prince has come and I'm forever, happily forever after, only to find it's like some nightmare, you know, fannied by gaslight. He's actually always been in love with somebody else, Camilla Parker Bowles.
So the question obviously is, why did he marry her? And who forced him to marry her?
Well, in a way, you know, what is really sad for Diana, I think, is that everyone was in on the story except her. I mean, this was really an arranged marriage. You know, she was picked out by the Queen Mother, and who said, look, Charles needs to get married. This girl is very young. She's a virgin, which is pretty much a vanished species in the UK at that point. There's no backstory here. She's perfect. The Queen and Prince Philip said, yes, she is. You're right on. You know, she's perfect. We need to get him married because he's having an affair with this married woman, Camilla Parker Bowles. We don't want, you know, another abdication drama in the monarchy. So everybody was all ganged up, and Charles was sort of too weak to sort of resist it. He knew he had to get married, and he kind of talked himself into thinking that he could love her. But he was already committed emotionally to somebody else, Camilla. And, you know, in the back of his mind, he always knew he could go back to his mistress because that's what Prince of Wales always had done.
Yeah.
But alas,
I mean, it was in the family?
it was in the family, but alas, Diana thought, I'm in a love match here.
Right.
So she was like the only one who didn't know.
It's interesting, you wrote about Diana. What Diana always possessed, even at her youngest and shyest, was an uncanny grasp of how to play the press. There was that very famous picture, which is in this book, of her sitting in front of the Taj Mahal. This goes to what you're talking about, the fact that she knew that her husband was in love with somebody else. And the press, of course, that was sort of a signal to the press.
Yeah, Diana was brilliant at using the press to send her signals, to send her statements out to the world. I mean, she really knew how to do that. And it was a kind of intuitive skill she had from the very beginning. And another reason, really, why Prince Charles married her at the beginning was that the press fell in love with her, you know, and he was so used to having bad press about girlfriends and things. Wow, you know, this young girl knows how to handle the press. They all love her. So it was very important, the whole question of how she knew how to play the press. Of course, later, it became a lethal skill, you know, from Charles's point of view, because she always knew much better than he how to dole out the quick soundbite, the little off-the-record interview, whatever, that was going to make him look bad. And she played that to the hilt, I have to say.
You get the impression from her kids that they really adored her, that she was a very good mother.
They did adore her. You know, she really, that was the biggest gift she brought to the royal family, which was that having had such a painful upbringing herself, she really was a wonderful mother. You know, she was a warm mother, a modern mother, a contemporary girl who knew how to raise her boys to have a fun, rough and tumble time, taking them to theme parks, taking them to McDonald's.
Knew how to speak to them, too.
Yeah, and I mean, she knew how to speak to them. And as a result, they come over now as very modern young men. They like soccer. They know how to, you know, be modern and speak to today's youth, which was not true, of course, of Prince Charles, who had been raised by governesses in a very Victorian atmosphere. These boys went to boarding school, you know, and they, you know, had to muck in along with everyone else.
Great to see you, Tina.
I love the one anecdote you write there where when she's confronted by the royal family and she says, excuse me, but my title has much more history than yours. So
Correct.
she
That was
had
one
a
of
sense.
her great strengths. She was grander than the royal family.
Yeah. Tina Brown, thank you.
Thank you.